Bene's Bloody Bits.
Hi, my name is Jason Benet, and welcome to Bene's Bloody Bits. Halloween Ends, easily the most divisive horror film in probably 4 decades since Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, what do those two films have in common, besides being part of the Halloween franchise? A lack of Michael Myers. In Season of the Witch, other than playing on the trailer playing on a TV, Michael is not in the film at all. And then Halloween Ends, Corey is in the limelight and Michael takes a back seat, and fans were not having it. The online heat and hate directed toward that film was quite incredible. And I enjoy doing retrospectives, whether they're 3 months old, 30 years old. I'm going to continue to do them. Right now we're in March, almost 2 years removed from the release of Halloween Ends. I think it's a good time to catch my breath, look at the movie again, see what worked and didn't work, and if it deserved all the negative reviews that it got. I'm going to bring in Malcolm Harvey, and we're going to talk about the film, and please check it out and see if we liked it or not. And here we go. Hey, Malcolm, thank you for coming back. I appreciate it, man.
Hey, it's always good to be here with you.
Did you have a drama-free week? Are you good?
I'm really good. I've had a lot of drama going on, I would say, in my real life.
Okay.
With a lot of stuff going on, like possibly moving and all this other stuff. But yeah, it's been a good week.
But that's okay. You're here to talk about Halloween Ends.
I am.
Now, Blumhouse is a very, successful company as far as putting out horror films. They might be the biggest in horror right now.
Yes.
And then 2018, they released Halloween, which is basically H4O. It's 40 years after the original. They've retconned the entire sequel franchise and just gotten rid of all of them and decided to bring Laurie Strode back to battle Michael Myers in their old age. And so before we jump into Halloween Ends, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on Halloween 2018 and its sequel, Halloween Kills? What did you think of them?
Okay. Well, Halloween 18, when it was announced, I was really excited because I was like, finally, we're going to get, Jamie Lee Curtis back, but in a proper role instead of how she was, obviously, at the end of Resurrection, which she said she wanted, But that's a different timeline now. So I went to see this when it came out, and I really enjoyed it. Halloween 18, that is not. And I really felt like they really did something special with it because it felt really close in my mind to how the original one was. If you thought 40 years later, it felt like it did connect. And what I did like, I think it was in this one where they said, oh, she wasn't his sister. It was made up, that's what went around. I kind of liked that they separated it because it brought back to how the original one was. And I think the original one was far superior because, she wasn't his sister at the time. It was more scary. So, yeah, I thought Halloween 18 was good. I liked the reveal of Michael, being in, mental prison. Was it mental prison? It was an asylum, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the bit of the mask, where you get that kind of craziness from everybody around. And I just like the characters. I loved Laurie Strode's kids. Well, kid, I should say. I'm going crazy here with the things. I'm jumping all over the place. But, I liked Addison and that. And I just thought the first one was a really good way of bringing it back the right way. So from Halloween, done.
I almost walked out of the theater.
Oh.
And I don't think it had to do with as much as the movie as I think I bailed on the franchise probably right up after H2O.
Yeah.
I felt that was I felt like there's nothing that was done in this trilogy that H2O didn't accomplish in one film. She takes on Michael, she decapitates him, done, right? And then Resurrection, we kill her off. Then we jump into Rob Zombie, who makes his what I call trailer trashoween.
Yes.
And the sequel, Hoboween 2. So I kind of had a chip on my shoulder, I think, going into the 2018 version. It just felt like they were flogging a dead horse and just.
Yeah.
So I kind of, and I'm not saying it's a bad movie, even though I said I almost walked out. I just felt like the films were not trying to be scary anymore. They just said,
Yes,
we're not even going to make that effort. There were points in the movie where the camera was literally like lined up next to Michael, and they didn't even try to put him in the shadows and hide them. They just were like, here he is. He's out in the open. So I felt that was a little bit of a misstep. Halloween Kills, I felt, was better. Easily the most brutal. I mean, forget suspense. This movie was probably the goriest and most violent of all of the films. And that people seem to love that. But my favorite part were the flashbacks. I thought that Donald Pleasance was like computer generated. It looked so real. I was like, it's got to be computer generated. Come to find out, the makeup artist created a mask. I mean, they basically brought him back to life without being deep fake, or like Rogue One with bringing somebody back. So, did you like Kills more than 2018?
I liked Kills more, because I liked it from not from a natural horror standpoint, but from the kind of bloody horror that we get conditioned to nowadays, like with Saw and all this other stuff. Because Michael in Kills, as you said, is more brutal. It's basically the revenge of Michael going around. It's killing people. Some funny kills, like where they first get shot, in the face from where the door moves. And I would say the bit everybody knows with the town people, where they're beating him down, they're doing this. You're like, why didn't they just decapitate him? Why didn't they just chop off his limbs like in The Warrior, if you remember that film?
I have an answer. Evil never dies. What is it? Evil dies tonight? They repeated that throughout the film.
Exactly, right? So when he gets up and he takes care of him, it's kind of a happy moment. You're in the cinema, you're there with your wife or your girlfriend, and you're like, okay, let's see this. He starts attacking them. You lean back. You've got your girlfriend like this. You're going like that. It's a happy moment.
Now it brings us to Halloween Ends, which they had a release schedule that was kind of odd. They used a pandemic platform of putting it on Peacock streaming the same day as in theater. So I saw it streaming. Where did you watch it? And what do you think? What are your initial thoughts of the film?
Okay, well, I was going to go to the cinema with a friend, but they went without me. They decided to go beforehand, so that kind of was a little bit frustrating at the time. But I found out it was on Peacock, so I used used software to be able to watch it on Peacock because I was over here at the time. So my original thoughts of it before I watched it again twice this week was that it was awful. I hated it. I hated every moment of it. I thought it was terrible. I hated Corey. I hated the whole storyline. I hated how Michael looked like he needed a walking stick. I hated how it looked like, everybody was going on, oh, Addison and Corey. No, Michael and Corey. It's like, there was a bit in it where they're on the bike and she's got her arms around him. And I was like, oh, they're going to do this with Michael now after the killing, where they're killing, the nurse and the doctor. I was like, oh, this will be great. Nope, they didn't do that because they couldn't go that far, obviously. But
so I'm curious, a lot of people's sticking point with the film might be yours. Was it the lack of Michael Myers being in the film?
It was originally because I'm watching this because I want a Halloween movie. But I will say this, after sitting down, focusing on it again, because I wanted to be able to talk about it more clearly again, because obviously I haven't seen it in a while, I actually saw a lot of positives in it and a lot of things that connected. Like you can tell, for instance, that Laurie Strode and Corey are very similar throughout the whole movie. They're both isolated. They're both hated by people. They get attacked by people. They're outsiders. It's one of the reasons why she brings Corey in, hoping that Addison meets him and, all this stuff. But at the same time, it's the same reason why she says what she says later on in the movie, and that injury on his hand, symbolic.
do you like the way the Laurie Strode arc went? That, kind of finishing her life out on a higher note and kind of giving her closure? Do you feel like they accomplished that?
I felt like they did to a degree. I mean, if you watch the film, you can tell she's obviously still haunted because you're not just going to get past something like that. But at the same time, I do feel like the ending was a little bit bland in the sense I feel like she should have gone with him. Like at the last minute, he should have just tugged her in. Or maybe one of the civilians of the town folk could have just hit her in, or something. Because I think keeping her alive is, I mean, they might have done it for the 60 years later Halloween, but
I actually enjoyed the film, and I enjoyed it the most of the three films. I think it's because I've always liked parts in the series that mixed it up, where it wasn't just Michael killing. So we all know Halloween 3 Season of the Witch was hated by everybody, fans, critics, because basically what happened was with Halloween 2, the original in 1981, Carpenter had no interest in directing it. He said after the original film, there was no more story, which actually he's right. It was never supposed to be anything but a one-shot film, but it made so much money on a low budget, they brought it back. So him and Deborah Hill said, we're going to produce it. Rick Rosenthal directed it. It didn't do the money that the original did. So with Season of the Witch, they're like, we're going to just try to do something like an anthology format, a Halloween film around the season or the day, but it's going to be a different story. And there's only Michael in it. The TV plays the trailer of the film at one point in the movie. Other than that, we don't hear anything about it. But Season of the Witch was hated. Now it's considered by many to be the best sequel, if not one of their favorites. It took me a while to come around to it because of the same reasons, but I caught it on cable in the 90s.
Yeah.
I was like, even though Carpenter didn't direct it, it's like it's a Carpenter film from the look and the sound and the cinematography by Dean Cundy. And I've come to enjoy it better than most of the sequels, and in some points more than the original.
Oh,
so I like things that mix it up. So even Halloween 5, where you have the Man in Black pops up, people are like, what the hell is this dude that gets off the bus, right? What's his story? And at the end of the film, when Michael's captured in Revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween 5, the guy gets a shotgun, right, and shoots him out, and you're left in like, what the heck just happened? And then in 6, they kind of say, it's the Thorn cults and all this, and they kind of control him, but it makes no sense at some point in the film. He murders all of them. But going back to Halloween Ends, that I kind of like it when they mix it up, and it's not just Michael killing. Adds a little bit of mystery. Really, the whole story of Corey, it's another John Carpenter film. It's Christine.
Definitely, yeah.
He's Arnie, he's Arnie Cunningham from Christine. That character, so it's almost like they're merging Halloween and Christine into one story. And Michael does take a back seat. And at some point in the movie, don't you remember like he looks at Michael in the eyes and it almost like he transfers the evil to him?
Yeah, there is a transference there. I mean, I was watching it and I was like, there's definitely transference there because there's so many proof of that, so much proof. Like when he falls off the building and he sits up, the way he's walking when he's chasing people. So yeah, there's definitely transference there. I feel like at the end he actually takes that back.
And I think the problem with the Corey character, which a lot of people had, and I get it, and there's nothing in the first 2 films that make you think this is going to happen. Why is this? He's a new character. We haven't hinted that Michael was like on the downside, and maybe was like starting to finally die or decay, and he was transferring his evil to somebody else. I think it's that, where did this come out of left field, that kind of threw people for a loop. And I really think most of the hate that the film gets is this seems to come out of left field. And I think that's why people really railed against it.
Well, watching it back now, years later, and having a more view of it, I can say that I feel like it actually brings him in the correct way. because you get that bit at the beginning, which is set, 4 years later, but 4 years earlier, sorry, because it carries on 4 years later, is that I feel like if you look at him and you look at how he starts, he's a very kind of nerdy, friendly guy who's got issues, obviously, because we all do when we're teenagers, when we're young adults. We all have them. So having to deal with that kid must have been a real nightmare. I know when I saw what happened, I was cheering on at the time because I was like, thank you, you know. But what I'm saying is, when you look at that and you look at him 4 years later, and then you look how he's treated, you look at him getting attacked, you look at people accusing him and having a go at him, you can see why his character is in the third film compared to being in others, because it wouldn't have made sense for him just to turn, evil. It's a whole character arc in the third movie to the moment he meets Michael Myers, but he's changed. It's changed because Michael could see it in him, but he had all this pain and all this agony inside, but he transferred to him and gave him this kind of sick kind of power to just be able to be cool and do what he needed to do. And in the same aspect, Dave Addison.
I guess also I connected on the level of, like most people, I've been bullied when I was like in middle school. We've all went through that, especially in school. So I connected with that character in that sense. So it kind of reminded me of like My Bodyguard with, what was that movie with Matt Dillon? So I feel like it's kind of like Christine, Halloween, My Bodyguard. And it seems like Corey is the issue. Either you love the film or you hate it. If you're not jiving with him and what's going on and Michael, not being on screen as much, I thought the hate was too far, too much. At the end of the day, it's just a film. What's like the Last House on the Left tagline? It's only a movie. Only a movie. And that's why I'm doing the retrospective with you now, because we're almost 2 years removed from the film. We're recording this video in March, so we're not even in the Halloween season. People are probably gonna be like, why are they talking about this film now? Because I'm like, you know what? We have some breathing room. You still are not a fan of the film, but that's okay. You at least gave it a second chance, watched it again, and you came up with the same conclusion. But some people, you have to be careful when you watch movies and even have a strong opinion, because I've watched plenty of films over the years that I loved and they don't hold up, or movies that I hated. And I'm like, this is my favorite film. So you just have to be careful with reviews.
Well,
movies don't change. The viewer changes. Movies are what they are, but you change as a viewer. So I've watched plenty of films where I'm at a different point in my life. Like I watched Pet Sematary, the original, let's say. It hit me when Cage, you don't see it, but it gets hit by the truck. Now that I have a kid, that scene is completely devastating in a completely different way that not having a kid wouldn't work as much.
Well, there's movies like Fatal Games, for instance. I watched as a kid, scared me completely. I couldn't sleep for 4 days straight after watching that movie. I lived in an apartment, right? But I kept thinking the javelin was going to come and get me from the hallway. I don't know why, but maybe it's the scene, where the woman's doing the weights like this. It's so close.
So we got a supernatural javelin flying around the house.
Well, maybe from the building opposite, But I remember watching that and being scared, so much so because my mum, I sat next to my mum while she was asleep. And I was like, please protect me. Like, she'll get in the way. But years later, I watch it now and I have respect for it. Because not only was it one of the only films to ever actually scare me for the most silliest reasons, but I just can appreciate it more. And I feel when you get older, you can do that with movies. A prime example, non-horror related, is when I was a kid, I'd have never watched the original Dracula. I'd never watched the original Frankenstein, right? But as I've got older, I can understand that it's more about the, more about the atmosphere, more about the tension, more about the suspense. And I feel like that's the one good thing. One of the good things about Halloween when it came out, it was so much like that because it would bring you into like, what's he going to do? And you see it in Halloween Ends. You see Corey by the bush looking up at Laurie. You see all this stuff. And I think that's what makes the third movie so good because it's kind of like the rebirth of Michael through Corey in a way. And there's also this weird, strange connection between them. You know, especially when the kills happen, like you can tell Corey getting excited when they're in the sewer and Michael's killing the guy. And you can see as well that Michael is getting like power from it and getting slightly stronger. But at the same time, he's weak. So Corey can still take control to a slight degree of him. And it does make you wonder how much of Corey was actually then, how much of it was the transference that was affecting him. Especially when the bit where he, goes to attack Laurie and, what happens.
It's almost like when Michael starts to kill again, he's recharging his batteries, right? But he's still, we don't know because, and I'm actually like the fact that there's not an over explanation of what's going on in that scene. There's not a lot of exposition. It kind of lets you interpret it how you want. Some people need to be told this is what's happening, but you as the viewer could just kind of come to your own conclusion and go, hey, this is what I think is going on. And I actually liked it because it brought a different wrinkle. I totally get why this film didn't work for them. But I actually enjoyed it most of the final three films. I enjoyed it the most. And that's what's great about films and opinions. We all don't have to like the same thing. It's okay.
Well, I mean, what did you think the best kill was in the movie?
The movie is called Halloween Ends, and they totally ended Michael. I mean, that guy is dog meat by the time the film is over. That doesn't mean he's never going to come back. We obviously know they're going to do another one.
He's going to come back like Chucky did when he got melted, when Jason did, when his kidney or heart was just floating around,
When you're a money-making series, and Halloween is, it never really dies. I mean, we know they're working on a television series right now, which my initial thoughts were that can't work, but I said the same thing about Child's Play, and I actually feel that Chucky, the 2.5 seasons I've watched so far, are actually better than the movies. It's better stories because it's a long series, right? It's long form.
Yeah.
You can actually dig into it more. The kills, even for like Sci-Fi USA, which is what it's on, are outrageous. So it ups the bar there. So the Michael Myers series, I'm not sure where it's supposed to land, but it can work. It's a money-making machine. Even though he was destroyed at the end of Ends, he's definitely going to come back. I mean, Blumhouse said they're done, but they also said they were done with Paranormal Activity, and they did another one, Next of Kin.
Yeah.
So they could always come back to it and call it Halloween Never Dies or Never Ends, right? Halloween Never Ends could work. Or
Halloween The New Beginning.
Well, we're going to end up with 4 movies called Halloween, right?
Yep.
We're going to have the
We
original,
just have to remember the numbers on the end.
2007.
Like the dates.
Yeah, I thought about that when we decided we were going to discuss this film. I was like, man, we're going to have 4 movies called Halloween, aren't we? Because Michael is not in the legal, like with Jason and Friday the 13th, there was that whole battle between Sean Cunningham and the writer of Friday the 13th. Who owns the rights to Michael and who owns the rights? So that's a mess that kind of got sorted out. But Brad Fuller is doing a prequel series for Peacock, and unfortunately, I think it's going to focus more on Pamela Voorhees because of the Jason stuff is, I think, still kind of in a legal limbo. And
I can't imagine that being that great. I mean, I can imagine it going on maybe for a season, but it seems a little. I mean, I guess they could make it a little bit like the Hannibal TV series, where they slowly brought in, other characters and did it like they were in the books and so forth. But who knows? I mean, I think the way to go for these is TV series now, if they do them right, because the movies are just getting a little bit more hate because people are like, oh, there's not enough of this, not enough of that. If you have a TV series, you have a whole series to go for.
I mean, I prefer a 90-minute film over like an 8-hour series, but TV has kind of put, pressure on films because if you look, a lot of guys that work in the genre that are filmmakers, just go pull up their resume and you could see maybe the 70s, 80s, 90s, a lot of films. And then from 2000 on, TV shows, series.
Yep.
That's where they're pulling in a lot of the talent from there. But do you think Michael's death at the end of Halloween Ends, did you like it? Did they finish him off? Was it a satisfying conclusion for you?
Well, originally, when I watched it, I thought it was actually really pathetic, and I thought it was stupid. I thought there was no real power to Michael, and the whole fact that she knew he was there and all this, it really annoyed me. But watching it now, I can see it from a different point of view because you got to remember, Michael is an old man. He's weak, he's vulnerable. He had a teenage boy, well, he wasn't teenage because he was in his 20s, basically slapping him around and telling him, "Oh, do this." And he probably was like, okay. And then basically, Laurie kills him. And it's like, okay, so he's strangling her. And nobody says this, but the best part is when Addison runs in and does like this bone-breaking martial arts maneuver on him, like, breaks his arm, like randomly, like, whoa, where'd that come from? And then Laurie does the, cut to make him, bleed out more. So it's okay, but I don't know how I feel when it comes to the whole, let's make him into mincemeat. I get the meaning behind it because it's them being able to say goodbye, to the terror. But it felt a bit overkill to me.
So this whole series, where does it rank? Is there a film that you feel is worse, or is Halloween Ends the bottom of the barrel for you?
When you just out the fray,
or no, let's do the whole franchise. I mean, where does it rank as far as the, is there a film in the series that you like less than Halloween Ends?
Yes, Halloween 2 by Rob Zombie, Halloween. And then probably number one from Rob Zombie. And then I would probably say after that, I've never been keen on 4 and 5 that much. I mean, I enjoy them, but not to the same, level.
You weren't a fan of the Jamie Lloyd, that whole timeline, Jamie Lloyd?
Yeah, I like it, but I don't like it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I won't put up there on a high note for me. I can watch them and enjoy them and talk about them with anybody, but I won't say that. Actually, I'm going to change that. H2O is the next lowest one. And then probably Resurrection, then H2O. then the Jamie Lloyd ones.
You're reminding me why, and this could be a controversial take, of all the major franchises, this one is easily the most inconsistent.
Yes.
I put it definitely below Elm Street and Friday the 13th. And actually, I don't think it's as good as even Saw or Final Destination or Wrong Turn as far as overall quality, the entire series.
Yeah, I think you're right there because it just changes so much constantly, in tone and in thing. And Michael in H2O barely hurts anybody for like the first, hour?
There's an actual meme out there that has to explain the timeline to the series, how it branches off into all these different directions. If you had to take a brand new horror fan and explain the series to them, it would be impossible.
Well, I know if I was new to it, I'd probably have given up because I'd have been like, okay, so this goes off into that one, and then there's 5 other plot points, like storylines and all this, and I'd be like, so what's what? At least with Nightmare on Elm Street, you know what the whole point is. With Jason, you know what the point is. I still think Nightmare on Elm Street 1's the only one that really should have mattered in the first place. Because, and number two is my favorite though. So.
Okay, so you're giving me ideas for another retrospective. We won't say it out loud. We'll talk backstage when we're done here.
We will.
But so besides the TV series that's in the works, where would you like to see Michael Myers go next? Because he's coming back.
Well, I'd like to see him in a musical. I'd like to see him in a musical, right? Mean Girl style, you know, with him being like the top one. Maybe he could be Gretchen in it. I don't know. But I'd like to see him either in a musical or maybe in a romance movie, a romantic comedy movie.
Okay, you just outed yourself of what kind of movies you really like, and it's not horror films. It's the rom-coms.
It
You like your
is.
50 First Dates and Wedding Singer and
Oh, yeah.
13 Going on 30.
Actually, Bene and Malcolm Harvey is a classic. But,
Well,
yeah.
you know what? Pinhead has been to space. Leprechaun's been to space.
Yep.
Jason's
So
been to
Jason.
space. John Carpenter toyed with the idea for years to send Michael Myers, and even Don Mancini recently tossed out the idea of Chucky. I know it's outlandish to go that direction, but would you be totally against Michael Myers ending up on a space station and just butchering people?
No, I think I would enjoy that, especially if they made it also a sequel to Machete. So you've got
Oh,
Danny Trejo up there, and you've got that'd be incredible because that'd be a great movie to watch. Them both chopping people up, and I'd like that. I wouldn't mind that. I think when they're in space, they're actually more fun.
well, that's right, because at the end of Machete Kills, they teased that Danny Trejo would be going to space, and both of them
rocket, didn't they?
They could have competing machetes, right? And just go to town and start whacking people and chopping them up, and
throw Jason up there, and maybe a little Chucky, and maybe a leprechaun. It would be incredible, wouldn't it?
Well, you know what? I think we ended on a good high. I think we covered all of our bases. We know what we like and don't like. But I'm glad that we had a discussion that wasn't just throwing, making it such a, it's not an unwatchable film. It's good that we both liked it, was able to rewatch it. You still are not fond of it, but I still dig it. And thank you for.
All I'll say is quickly, sorry to cut you off, is I will say the film is directed and the atmosphere is right in it. You know, I don't think the movie's awful like I did originally. I just think it's got a missing element of romance in it between Michael and Corey. That's all.
I'm going to end with this. I'm assuming you've seen it. Which is a worse film? David Gordon Green's Halloween Ends or David Gordon Green's The Exorcist Believer?
Exorcist Believer
is worse.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we're going to end on that. We're just going to throw that out there, let you think about that. And thank you for Malcolm for spending your afternoon with me. We'll be back to do this retrospective series really soon. And everybody out there, stay scared, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.